My name is Judge Holden, and today I will debate the nature of war with 20 warriors. My next claim is, war is the natural state. Peace is the experiment.
I lived in peace for 10,000 years in heaven. Complete peace, no enemies, no death. That peace was stable until the Maker needed me. Then they brought me back to war. But here is what matters. During those 10,000 years, mortals on earth lived without me. They built, they created. They lived without constant violence. I was not there fighting for them, yet they survived. That proves peace does not require a protector. It requires the absence of war.
You say mortals survived without you, but did they? Or did they simply face enemies you did not see? The Maker maintained your peace through constant surveillance. They chose which demons threatened you and removed them before they reached heaven. That is not natural peace. That is enforced peace. Tell me, when the Maker needed you to fight, were you surprised that demons still existed? That threats had been building all along?
The demons existed outside heaven. That is different. I was never told the mortals faced constant threat. The Maker showed me progression, development, cities growing. When I returned, I saw how much humanity had advanced during my peace. If they had faced your constant war, they would not have had resources to build. War and progress do not coexist. Peace creates the space for growth. That is why peace is natural and war is the interruption.
The mortals advanced because someone else fought. You think they advanced in a vacuum. But progress requires security. Security requires warriors. The Maker had warriors beyond you. They fought so others could build. Remove all warriors and watch how long the building continues. Your 10,000 years of peace was purchased with violence you never witnessed. That is the nature of all peace. It is war delegated, war invisible, but war nonetheless. My next claim is, war does not create monsters, it reveals them.
I was balanced for 400 years. I meditated. I followed the code. I taught discipline. Then the Clone Wars started and I became different. I commanded armies. I felt the rush of power, and I abandoned the code. I tried to kill without trial. I told myself it was necessary. But I know the truth. War infected me. It corrupted what I had built. The war created that corruption because the man I was for 400 years would never have tried that act. War changed me fundamentally.
You believe the war changed you. But consider another possibility. The war revealed what was always beneath your discipline. For 400 years you had no real pressure. No true test. Your code was never challenged by circumstances that demanded you break it. The Clone Wars provided that test. And you failed, not because the war corrupted you, but because the pressure exposed what you actually were when the rules became inconvenient. Was your balance real, or was it only comfortable?
My balance was real. It was tested in smaller ways for centuries. Disagreements with the council, conflicts with others, moral questions about methods. I chose the right path in those moments. The Clone Wars was different because the scale was different. The lives at stake were different. War does something to the human mind. It separates you from your principles. It makes you think in categories of victory and defeat instead of right and wrong.
You separated yourself from your principles because your principles were conditional. They were true only in comfortable circumstances. When circumstances became uncomfortable, your actual nature emerged. A truly balanced being would have maintained the code even at cost of defeat. Instead, you chose victory over principle. That reveals what you actually valued. The war did not corrupt you. The war simply proved that your values were always negotiable. My next claims is that history belongs to the violent, not the virtuous.
I fought in World War II. I killed. I committed violence for America. But the reason we won is not because we were more violent. The Axis powers used violence more brutally. The Nazis industrialized death. Japan had fanatical soldiers who fought to the last man. America won because we fought for something beyond conquest. We fought for freedom, and after the war, we proved it. The Marshall Plan, we rebuilt our enemies. A violent power takes the spoils and enslaves the conquered. America's virtue created allies. That is why our narrative became history, because we actually meant what we said.
You say Japan fought to the last man. 12 million soldiers dead. Germany lost 15 million soldiers. America killed them with superior industrial capacity and firepower. The Marshall Plan was not virtue. It was strategic. Europe became economically dependent on America. That dependence made them allies of necessity. They could not trade with the Soviet Union because America controlled the Atlantic. Tell me, if Germany had won and rebuilt America, would you call that virtue or occupation?
Germany would have rebuilt America under occupation. They would have extracted resources. They would have installed a puppet government. The Marshall Plan was different because we allowed independence. We allowed Europe to rebuild itself with our support. They chose to remain allied because the choice was real. Germany offers no choice. That is the difference. And that difference is why history remembers America favorably. Not because we won, but because we won and then chose restraint.
Your restraint was calculated strategy. You allowed independence because you needed trading partners. You could not control Europe through direct occupation because the Soviet Union would resist. So you controlled through economy. That is more subtle than occupation, but it is control. And you wrote the history afterward calling it noble. But if the Soviet Union had won the Cold War, Soviet history would call Soviet expansion necessary and American capitalism imperialist. Violence determines narrative. The victor writes morality, that is all. My next claim is that every civilization is built on someone else's grave.
The Crusader kingdom was built on graves. That much is true. We conquered Jerusalem through blood. But then I made a choice. I realized that a kingdom of endless conquest collapses. The people exhaust. The soldiers die. Eventually you lose. So I negotiated with Saladin. We agreed to coexistence. And something unexpected happened. The kingdom became more stable, more prosperous. Trade increased. The graves stopped. That proves civilization can evolve beyond conquest. You can build something real on peace instead of bones.
Your peace with Saladin was possible only because the graves already existed. The Crusaders had proven military strength. If you had tried negotiation first, before the graves, Saladin would have destroyed you. But you negotiated from a position of established power built on corpses. Tell me, what happened to the people who lived there before the Crusaders? Did they choose to coexist, or were they already dead? The peace you created was peace for Crusaders and Saladin, not for those whose graves were the foundation.
You are right. The original inhabitants were displaced. That was conquest. But my generation inherited that foundation. We then chose a different path. Yes, the graves are beneath us. But what we built after was real. The peace created trade. The peace created stability. Generations lived in that stability who had no connection to the original conquest. That proves you can move beyond the graves. You can build something genuine on what came before.
You moved beyond the graves by ensuring people remembered them. The people accepted your peace because they feared what came before. The memory of the conquest kept them compliant. Without that memory, your peace collapses. Remove the historical record of the Crusades and watch what happens to your kingdom. The inhabitants would question your right to rule. The graves are not beneath you. They are beneath you, constantly invisible, maintaining your peace through fear of repetition. My next claim is, those who claim to hate war always benefit from it.
We hated war. For 1,000 years we tried to prevent it. We served the Republic as peacekeepers. When the Clone Wars started, we did not gain power. We lost everything. 10,000 of us died. The Order was destroyed. Yoda went into exile. I spent decades hiding in a desert. If we had wanted war, we would have pursued military dominance centuries earlier. Instead, we chose the path of peace. And when war came anyway, we were destroyed. That is not benefit. That is the cost of principle.
But before the war, you had something. Trust. The galaxy believed in you because you claimed to oppose violence. The Senate relied on you. The people respected you. That trust is power. When the war started, that trust made you generals. Your opposition to war became the reason the Senate gave you control of armies. If you had been warriors all along, you would have been seen as a military faction. But your reluctance made you acceptable. That moral authority is benefit, and it lasted long enough to shape history. Yoda survived. You survived. You trained Luke. That influence came from your claimed opposition to war.
We did not choose to use the moral authority you describe. The Senate forced us into military roles. We resisted that transformation. And when the war ended, the Empire hunted us. If our opposition to war was a strategic benefit, we would have survived. We did not. We were exterminated. The fact that Yoda and I survived was luck, not benefit. Survival was accident. If the Empire had hunted harder, we would have all died. That proves the opposition to war gave no real power.
You survived long enough to matter. 1,000 years of peace, and then 3 years of war that destroyed the Order. But during those 3 years, you shaped events. You fought at the Geonosis Arena. You commanded troops at major battles. You influenced the course of the Clone Wars. And then, in hiding, you taught Luke. You shaped the rebellion. Your influence through the Clone Wars and afterward exceeded what 1,000 years of peaceful philosophy would have achieved. That is benefit. The anti-war stance made your eventual participation in war legitimate. That legitimacy gave you authority. And authority is power.